Welcome to the very first news bulletin on the Joy News channel, the AM News. Let's start from the Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba-Akoria. He's assured the public that strategic measures are in place to contain the cholera and meningitis outbreak in parts of the country. So far, 40 deaths have been recorded since the onset of the crisis. Speaking at a donation ceremony where Tobinco Pharmaceuticals provided essential relief items to support the fight, Professor Akoria reiterated that the situation remains under control as the Ghana Health Service intensifies its response efforts. We'll tell you more in this report.
The Ghana Health Service has confirmed that 40 lives have been lost to the ongoing cholera and meningitis outbreaks in parts of the country. As health authorities work urgently to contain the situation, private stakeholders, including Tobinco Limited, have stepped in to support the fight by donating essential medical supplies. Commending Tobinco for its generosity, Director General of the Ghana Health Service, Professor Samuel Kaba-Akoria, assured the public that the outbreak is under control with a few suspected cases pending confirmation.
And both outbreaks, and however, we still have some few suspected cases. It's always important to differentiate or make it very clear what suspected cases and then confirmed cases. So what we are having now are just some few suspected cases, and samples have been taken for laboratory, and when they are confirmed, we'll get to know. Nonetheless, the most important thing here is each case should be treated, and this gesture has actually come in time, and we hope that once we distribute to the respective regions, it will help with the case management, that is the treatment of the cases. The situation is under control. Over the weekend, the Honorable Minister and myself and the team went to Central Region. For the past 3 weeks, there have been no deaths, so meningitis too is under control. So the Honorable Minister will give a press statement. We'll be engaging the Parliament tomorrow, after which the Honorable Minister will give a press statement on both situations.
Speaking to Joy News, Dr. Christopher Mensah, Managing Director of Tobinco Pharmaceuticals, emphasized the company's commitment to support efforts to combat the crisis.
So when the occasion called that there was this outbreak of cholera of CSM, then he was moved by his humanitarian impulses to quickly organize most of the medications that he produces from the factory to come support to break this chain of infection and restore health to Ghana. And he's always pleased to do this. He's done this within the COVID season, and then even out of the COVID season, perennially he comes in to support, and that is why he came in here to support, and we are just representing him.
The Ghana Health Service is urging the public to practice proper hygiene and seek medical attention at the first sign of symptoms to help curb the spread. Mamavi Savakote's report read to you.
President John Dramani Mahama has reasserted the government's commitment to stabilizing Ghana's economy as a foundation for sustainable progress. Speaking at the Africa Business Forum 2025 in Addis Ababa in Ethiopia, he said his government is focused on stabilizing the cedi, tackling inflation, and addressing other critical economic issues. Yes, more.
In a crisis, the first thing you do is to focus on stabilizing, and so that's what we're focused on, bringing interest rates down, bringing inflation down, stabilizing the currency, dealing with the debt overhang, and that's where our focus is for now. But at the same time, to analyze the factors that got Ghana into this place in the first place, and put in the steps that ensure that we don't end up here again. And so that would entail looking at the Fiscal Responsibility Act and strengthening it, looking at the Public Financial Management Act and strengthening it, so that tomorrow we don't have a situation where a minister, goes onto the Eurobond market and borrows 11.5 billion over 5 years and puts most of it into consumption. Those are some of the things we need to look at. We need to look at our debt management departments and strengthen it so that it's able to provide information to the public on what our debt trajectory is and keep it below a certain ceiling. We need to introduce an independent value for money office so that we're making sure that our projects are coming in at the right value and at the right cost. we need to make sure that we cut out waste, reduce corruption. Those are all things that have to be dealt with.
Now, the forum, organized by the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, centered on the theme, Moving from Potential to Prosperity, Activating Africa's Regional Value Chain. President Mahama stressed the urgent need for African countries to add value to their raw materials, stressing that such efforts would also create employment opportunities.
The same with cocoa. We've exported cocoa beans for God knows how many years, and still we export cocoa beans. There's some processing capacity, it's about 30%. We have the capacity to process almost 500,000 tons of cocoa, but we're not processing that much. We're processing at about 200,000 tons because the cocoa board that needs to be extracted believes that it gets immediate foreign exchange when the beans are traded. And we sell forward, and so they get the money in advance before we even export one bean. But bringing the value addition home will be bringing jobs back so that our young people can get jobs to do, especially putting that processing in the areas where the cocoa is grown. And that's why we're excited about the initiative between Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire, because together we produce about 80% of the world's cocoa. And so if we coordinate and work together, not only in terms of improving production, but also in terms of processing and bringing processing up to that chocolate, that last chocolate home, we'll create more jobs for our young people, because we all recognize that with a growing youth population, yes, it's an advantage for Africa, but if we're not creating opportunities for these young people, then it becomes a ticking time bomb. And so we need to look at all those areas.
In other news, the Member of Parliament for Kankwe South, Ernest Adomako, has launched a 79.5 million Ghana cedi initiative to renovate public schools in the constituency. The initiative is aimed at enhancing educational infrastructure and improve teaching and learning conditions, among others. Speaking at the launch, Ernest Adomako emphasized that the initiative is aimed at building a brighter future for the constituency through improved education.
Event which brought together the Minister of Education, Haruna Iddrisu, Gamanche Kintaku Teku True II, and other chiefs marks a significant step towards enhancing teaching and learning conditions in the constituency. The first phase of the project will focus on redevelopment of bishop schools in Bubuashi. Addressing the audience, Member of Parliament for Kankwe constituency, Ernest Adomako, emphasized that the initiative is aimed at building a brighter future for the constituency through improved education.
This is designed to improve teaching and learning conditions for over 8,000 learners, 350 dedicated teachers across 20 schools in Okankwe South. We are not just fixing schools. We are building a brighter and prosperous future for the next generation of leaders, innovators, and change makers.
Gamanche Kintaki Teku True II urged pupils to take full advantage of the project once completed.
You are our next generation.
Yeah.
You are the future of this country.
Yeah.
That is why we are interested today in your welfare, in upgrading schools, not only in Okankwe South, but in the whole of the Greater Accra region and the whole of the country.
Education Minister Haruna Iddrisu assured constituents that the long-abandoned cables and wireless primary school would be completed within the year, along with the construction of the Bubuashi Public School.
Accordingly, the cable and wireless primary school, which began some work of construction under present GEAs of blessed memory, will be completed this year. Additionally, the Bubuashi School will award a new contract of the state-of-art basic school to support the Bubuashi School as part of our support.
The 79.5 million Ghana cedis project, funded through the MP's personal resources and supported from Gamanche, when completed will include science and ICT laboratories, library and landscaping. Reporting for Joy News, Collins Frimpong.
The Central Regional Director of the National Health Insurance Authority is urging healthcare providers to deliver quality services to patients using the authority's card. Speaking at the 2024 end-of-year review meeting, Regional Director Fred Appiah emphasized that cardholders' confidence in the authority grows when they experience the true value of their cards in accessing quality healthcare. He added that strengthening this confidence will support the authority's goal of achieving universal health coverage. Abigail Nkrumah Isel has more.
At the end-of-year review meeting of the Central Regional National Health Insurance Authority, the Regional Director, Fred Appiah, indicated that the goal of the authority is to achieve universal health coverage, sharing how the authority hopes to realize that goal.
In terms of membership, we targeted to register 1.7 million of our central regional population. At the end of the assessment, we registered 1,552,000. This represents 47.31% of our population. But in terms of the targets, we achieved 85% of our targets. Compared with 2023, we see that in terms of population, we moved from 45.6 to 47.31. It means there's appreciation, there's an increase in terms of the population coverage.
Mr. Appiah also recalls some challenges the authority encountered along the way.
One key challenge that we have, having gone around, is the issue of co-payments. Most people get their card, they take to the facilities, and some of the facilities, they charge them. Please, we beg of you, when the person comes with the card, please, let's try our best. You know that payment has improved. No provider working with health insurance can say that our payment has not improved. Our payment has improved tremendously. And once payment has improved, let's also try and give the services to our members. It's only when we give that service to them that they have the confidence in the system and begin to renew their card when it expires. So please, providers, we beg you.
Francis Oti Frimpong, the Director of Membership and Regional Operations, shared this about the authority's targets, outlining the authority's contribution to achieve the target.
At the national level, we try to set a target of 20.8 million coverage. That will translate into about 63.5%. We're trying as much as possible to achieve that leg of UHC by 2030, which is a population coverage. And the minimum that we have to do by 2030 is 80%. And as of 2023, we have done 55.5%. The good thing is that we are doing very well in the central region. So some of the strategies need to be put in place to get more numbers. The outreach programs is what we are trying as much as possible to encourage, because currently most of the members do not walk to our offices to enroll or renew. The pressure has actually gone down because of the electronic platforms that we have introduced.
From Cape Coast, Abigail Nkrumah Isel reports for Joy News.
Let's move on to other stories. We know many communities continue to rely on dams for survival, but this comes at a cost. The water is often contaminated, affecting the well-being of the people. Today, we'll take you to Sabonjida in the Nanumba North Municipality of the Northern Region, where River Dakar is the sole source of water for all household chores. Martina Bugri reports that the source is also breeding ground for waterborne diseases. She tells us more.
The continuous struggle for water in the northern region is a daunting task. In most communities, it's the responsibility of women and children. But for women in the Sabonjida community in the Nanumba North Municipality, it's a never-ending spectacle. The women spend their mornings and evenings battling with animals for space at the River Dakar just so they can get water for their domestic use. Speaking to Joy News, a resident, Kwame Gladys, said they continue to fall sick because the water is not clean.
The challenges facing us in Sabonjila here is that our water problem. The water that we are taking is difficult for us. when we are taking the water, we are falling sick every day. And the cows too are there swimming inside the water. They urinate inside, and people go top there and bath inside. We don't have borehole. That is our challenges facing in Sabongila here.
Another resident said, even though they are tired of drinking the polluted water, they have no choice.
We will have water, but the water is not treated. So getting to dry season like this, the Fulani people come and they use kettles to drink the water. So sometimes we have challenge with them. Normally when we fall sick and we go to hospital, they always say there is sickness in the water. And we are seeing how best we can try to solve that problem. But we want the other people to try and help us to solve the problem.
Assemblyman for the area, Francis Minagali, said reports from health facilities in the area have attributed the high incidence of typhoid to contaminated water.
The river being the only source or the main source of water means that the animals also drink. And so we have had cases from the Salaga hospital, even from here up to Chamba. Patients have been diagnosed of typhoid fever. And so they have warned us to be very careful. Even the chief companion in the community regarding typhoid also render services or advice to patients and how they could on their own treat the water before drinking. Some health workers have told them or advised them to boil the water before giving it to the children particularly.
The Executive Director of MBC Africa, Madam Tenemba Anasamake, emphasized that agribusiness plays a crucial role in driving Africa's development. She stated that African nations do not always need external funding to achieve their goals, as local investors can spur growth by channeling their resources into agribusiness. Speaking at the second edition of the Agribusiness Festival in Wa, Madam Samake highlighted the sector's interconnectedness with all aspects of the economy and its reliance on human capital.
In 2024, MBC Africa launched the first edition of the Agribusiness Festival, codenamed AgriFest, to serve as a platform that brings together key stakeholders to promote the growth of agribusiness in West Africa. The goal of the AgriFest is to contribute to food security in West Africa and beyond by connecting the various actors in the value chain to the resources in order to sustain the growth. The AgriFest brought together participants from different countries within West Africa to participate, pitch their business ideas, and exhibit their products. It was held on the theme Human Capital, the Success Factor in Agribusiness. Executive Director of MBC Africa, Tenemba Anasamake, in her welcome statement, noted that local investors can drive growth by channeling resources into agribusiness.
Because what we're trying to prove is that we don't need external funding sometimes to achieve what we want. We have enough money in Ghana, and we just need people that are willing to put that money towards agribusiness. Because number one, Africa has, I think, 60 to 65% of the remaining arable land. We have water, we have the young people, and we still import practically $100 billion US dollars worth of food. It simply doesn't make sense.
Tenemba Anasamake also observed that agribusiness is one of the most effective ways to drive Africa's development.
You know, at MBC Africa, we have believed for years that one of the best ways to develop our countries is to develop agribusiness. Because if you look at it really, everything in agribusiness touches the other sectors in the country. And one of those things is the human factor. And the human factor is the foundation of anything that you will do. Despite the way we are talking a lot about technologies these days, AI and whatever, even AI was created by a human being. So The human factor remains fundamental.
Technical Director of World University Service of Canada, Joseph Apiliga, who was the keynote speaker, stated that young people must be equipped with a skill that align with the demands of today's market.
To ensure that our youth are ready for these changes, we must rethink how we educate and train them. Education must go beyond concepts and embrace practical hands-on learning. Whether it is in agribusiness, agri-tech, or sustainable farming practices, young people must be equipped with the skills that align with the demands of today's market. President of the Zinibua Traditional Council and Vice President of the Upper West Regional House of Chiefs, Koro Abu Diakasun Kebenyamada Fiv, who chaired the function, admonished the stakeholders that business cannot stand in isolation.
We will look at human capital in terms of the value of the skills they have to acquire in the context of changing environmental factors, most especially the climatic factors. Of course, business cannot operate in isolation. The relationship business has with some of these elements, like gender issues, like environmental issues, like the type of technology to be adopted, of course, goes a long way to help in facilitating the growth of the agribusiness.
A participant from Nigeria, Omolala LCO, shared the experience of the festival.
Oh, very engaging, very interesting. It is enlightening because it is the MBC Africa project is focused on agribusiness, Africans feeding Africa, and so far so good. In the past 2 days, it has been awesome. We have learned a lot about skills and talent development. We have talked about how performance management, talent acquisition is good for succession planning, and how that can help the agri space to take up the best of talents, as well as also measure their performance, so that they in turn can run a business that outlives them.
Reporting for the news, Rafiq Salam. Wow.
Well, from let's get into our business update now with Samuel Kujubrace.
Now, away from that, partner at Deloitte, Gideon IEO, says moves by government to rationalize Ghana's tax structure to help deal with issues of compliance is doable. This follows justification by President John Mahama during an interview with Bloomberg News that the move is part of effort to deal with compliance issues and revenue mobilization challenges. Speaking to Joy Business, Gideon IEO maintained rationalizing the tax structure can be done.
I think it's doable. There's been a lot of discussions about this. Businesses are excited. They want more, obviously. But I look at the government side as well. It forms, if you look at the revenue it collected in 2024, I am using the Bank of Ghana's reports around June. The COVID-19 levy and the e-levy, they form an average of 2.5%. And I think it's doable that can be done. We have the big four that I could say are untouchable, the usual VAT, PAYE, the import duties, and the corporate income tax. But these taxes do not contribute so much. That's the e-levy and COVID. As I said, averagely 2.5%. So that can be doable. All right. However, I was very happy the president at the Munich Security Conference mentioned touching the expenditure, because it's not just a matter of revenue. The two combine to give us the deficit. So if you reduce the revenue and you can also optimize the expenditure side and make sure that there is value for money, and we get, make sure our 1 cedi spent goes a long way, then it's possible and then it's achievable.
Now, Minister for Youth Development and Empowerment, George Opariado, has revealed that the 2025 budget will announce several initiatives geared towards supporting the youth. He made this revelation at the launch of the Youth and Women Business Policy Environment Reform Project, spearheaded by the Ghana Chamber of Young Entrepreneurs and Investment Climate Reform Facility.
One of the things we intend to work keenly together with the Ministry of Finance and other developing partners is to create an entrepreneurship fund that will be leveraged to support young entrepreneurs. And then whatever rates will be given out will not be the market rate. As we know now, we know MasterCard and some other organizations have funding as low as 10%. Some are even doing segregates. That is where we aspire to be. And so with the creation of the Entrepreneurship Fund, that was promised in our manifesto. Once that fund takes off, we will leverage on other developing partners to support, so we can lend support to young businesses at a rate that sits well and one that is feasible, not at 35%. If I'm starting a business and you expect me to borrow at 35%, clearly you want to kill my business. And so we must look at innovative ways of doing things that will be sustainable and also one that young people can leverage on to promote their businesses. The budget is here to be read. It's one of the things we'll be pushing for. As part of our manifesto, we promise that we will set up an entrepreneurship fund. And you know that we've had a lot of funds in the system. We need to do an assessment of what those funds have become, whether they've turned out well or whether they've not turned out well. But it is a fund that His Excellency is committed to launching. We have few initiatives. In our manifesto, we made a 120-day pledge. The Codex program will definitely take place this year, so it will definitely find space. The Jumeirah project will definitely find space in the budget, and the National Apprenticeship Program. These are bold programs and bold initiatives that we promise that in 120 days, it will be launched and it will take off. So certainly, these programs will find space in the budget.
So let's wrap up today's business update with the commodities market. So that's our business update for you on the AM News. Back to you, Suti Abochi.
Thank you so much, Brace, for serving as business update. And that's it for the AM News Bulletin on the AM show. Coming up next is the news review. Those who join us, Samuel Ayepai is former Member of Parliament for Yenswano, and Amma Pratt is Press Secretary, Office of the Vice President. They're joining us to review the newspapers in a bit. Please stay. We'll be right back.